Let's be honest, there's a reason you clicked this video right now instead of brushing it off like you usually do. Deep down, you felt it. The silent pull of a woman's influence that made you change your decisions, shift your mood, question your worth without her saying a single word. That uneasy feeling in your chest when you're around her, that confusion, that need to prove something. It wasn't love. It was control. And the most unsettling part? She didn't need to move her lips to do it. You felt it through her silence, her body tension, that mysterious shift in her energy that made you chase harder. You're a grown man, yet at times, around certain women, you've behaved like someone seeking permission to exist. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here because no one has broken it to you like this. A woman does not control a man with words. She controls him with what he withholds from himself. When she doesn't give validation, your ego scrambles to earn it. When she goes quiet, your thoughts race to fill the gap. When she seems unimpressed, you try harder, not to show off, but to convince yourself you are enough. That's the first secret of psychological control. She doesn't give you answers. She makes you look for them inside yourself, and you confuse internal discomfort with emotional connection. This is how strong men slowly break. Not because she was powerful, but because she activated a power you never learned to master, the battle between your mind and your need to feel acknowledged. Right now, you're remembering a face. Maybe it was years ago. Maybe it's someone you text every day. Think back to the moment you started over-investing. It wasn't when she complimented you. It was when she paused, when she leaned back, when she let you feel the distance without questioning it. You started competing with other men who weren't even there. You became your own rival. You did the work for her. That's the hard truth. She didn't manipulate you. You responded to what was left unsaid. From now on, every time you feel that silence pressure, I want you to stop asking, "What does she want from me?" and instead ask, "Why am I needing something from her?" You've probably been told your whole life to focus on what a woman says, to read her words, decode her compliments, analyze her texts. But here's what nobody explained to you. Her real power lives in what she subtly denies you. That slight shift in her attention, that moment she looks at her phone instead of holding eye contact, that delayed reply. Each one sends a signal your ego interprets as rejection, and men who fear rejection don't walk away, they double down. That's the second psychological secret. Women trigger pursuit by teaching your nervous system to chase what feels uncertain. Uncertainty becomes excitement, and excitement becomes emotional dependency. She doesn't have to ask you to prove yourself. You volunteer. Think of a time you were texting her, waiting hours for a reply while telling yourself she was busy. Your chest felt tight. Your thoughts replayed the last message you sent. Was it too much? Did you say the wrong thing? You didn't care about the conversation. You cared about what her silence said about you. That's the silent manipulation, not because she planned it, but because she understands something on instinct. Once a man ties his value to a woman's response, he becomes self-controlled. You start altering your tone, restructuring your words, mirroring her energy. You try to be less demanding, more interesting, more valuable. You edit yourself for validation. And the moment you start editing yourself, you sacrifice authenticity for approval. Reality is women are not impressed by a man who chases their attention. They are drawn to the man who doesn't panic in silence. They test your emotional independence long before they assess your strengths. If she can influence your sense of worth without speaking, she knows she can steer your behavior later with even less effort. Whether consciously or not, she watches your reactions more than your intentions. You think she fell for your humor, your status, your intensity, but often what truly interests her is whether she can unsettle you without trying. Let that sink in. True strength isn't about being unaffected. It's about recognizing the pull, absorbing the tension, and responding from self, not from ego. Imagine sitting across from her. She pauses before answering you, and instead of filling the gap with reassurance, you lean back and breathe. You don't react. You don't adjust. You simply remain. Not to prove power, but because you already feel grounded. That stillness rewires the dynamic. You go from chaser to selector. You stop performing and start evaluating. you must understand. The moment she sees you are not starving for emotional permission, she loses silent control. And that's when genuine attraction replaces psychological grip. There's a moment every man experiences, though most never admit it. A woman looks at you, not with admiration, but with quiet evaluation. She tilts her head, softens her expression, as if silently measuring your certainty, and something deep inside you tightens. You start to wonder if you're enough in that moment, not just for her, but for yourself. This is where the third psychological secret comes alive. A woman doesn't control you by making you want her. She controls you by making you question yourself in her presence. If she can trigger self-doubt without a word, she knows you will do the work to re-earn a sense of worth. And you won't just work for her, you'll work against yourself. Think back to when you felt completely confident around other people but strangely unsettled around her. Nothing about you changed, except your perception through her eyes. That's the trick. The more you project your identity onto how she might judge you, the more influence she gains without lifting a finger. She doesn't give you insecurity. She simply exposes the parts of you that were already unstable. It's not manipulation, it's revelation. And until you recognize it, you'll keep chasing her approval instead of mastering your internal imbalance. A man who bases his identity on external praise becomes emotionally fragile. That's why you hear stories of strong men crumbling when ignored by a woman they desire. It's not obsession with her. It's addiction to the feeling she withholds. She becomes the gatekeeper to your masculinity in your mind. But listen carefully. Your masculinity is never under her control. It's only waiting for your ownership. The moment you stop auditioning for acceptance, the dynamic shifts. She no longer sees a man trying to be chosen. She sees a man already chosen by himself. Men think winning a woman's interest is the goal. The real goal is being free from the need to earn it. Picture this. You're with her. She observes you quietly, expecting you to offer reassurance, validation, a sign that you're still invested. Instead, you breathe, slow your pace, and let the silence sit. You don't rush to impress. You don't lean forward. You let the moment belong to you, not to her expectation. That's where authority begins. Not dominance, not game, self-possession. Understand this. Attraction thrives where control ends. A woman may spark the spark of doubt, but she respects the man who doesn't fear facing it. Because if you can hold yourself steady when she subtly challenges your worth, she knows you can hold yourself steady through life's real storms. And deep down, that's what she truly wants. A man she can lean into, not one she constantly pulls around emotionally. Most men misunderstand the quiet signals women give. You think control comes from grand gestures, ultimatums, or arguments. The truth is far more subtle. A woman can influence your behavior with the smallest shifts, slight smiles, subtle touches, a tilt of her head, or the way she positions her body. These micro moments are not accidents. They are emotional markers, tools she unconsciously uses to test your stability. And men rarely see them coming because they are trained to respond to words, not energy. This is the fourth secret. Influence often lives in the invisible. If she can spark a ripple in your mind without speaking, she has the upper hand. Consider how your body reacts to her without realizing it. Your heart rate quickens when she's near. You unconsciously lean in, adjusting posture to match hers. You laugh louder, speak softer, mirror her gestures. None of this is conscious. You feel the pull, but mistake it for attraction. In reality, she is revealing your patterns, your instincts, your vulnerabilities. You are responding to her control, but it doesn't feel like control. That's why it's dangerous. You think it's natural chemistry, when in truth, it's a lesson in self-awareness, waiting for you to grasp it. What separates the men who break free from this subtle hold is perception. Awareness shifts the dynamic. When you notice the tilt of her head, the pause before she answers, the slight disengagement in her tone, you stop reacting automatically. You start observing. You start choosing your response rather than defaulting to your ego. A man who notices without panicking transforms the interaction. The same woman who once unconsciously triggered your insecurities now meets a steady presence. And that is disarming for her, not because she loses power, but because you reclaim yours. Here's the hard truth. Women often test emotional resilience before anything else. They instinctively sense if a man is anchored to his own identity or tethered to external validation. If she sees instability, she may exploit it unconsciously, simply to gauge how strong you are. That's why some men leave interactions feeling drained, confused, or obsessed, even without a single cruel word being spoken. Your mind did the work of spinning itself out, and she simply provided the environment. Think about this in terms of your life outside dating. This same pattern shows up in every relationship, friendship, and professional dynamic. Anyone who senses your emotional triggers can nudge you without saying anything, but mastering your awareness allows you to filter influence intentionally. You choose which cues matter, which reactions serve you, and which moments pass by unclaimed. That level of control, emotional autonomy, is the antidote to silent manipulation. So next time you feel that pull, the quiet shift, the unreadable glance, the subtle energy, you don't have to chase or overanalyze. You pause, breathe, and anchor yourself. That stillness, that deliberate self-possession, is more magnetic than any strategy or technique. It signals that you are no longer an instrument to be played, but a man who orchestrates his own life. And once you reach that point, influence no longer feels like control. It becomes respect. Attraction and influence are not about who speaks the loudest or who makes the boldest move. They are about subtle currents, the unspoken dance of attention, energy, and self-control. Women instinctively sense when a man is grounded in himself versus when he is tethered to external approval. This is the fifth secret. The more you depend on her reactions for your sense of worth, the more invisible strings she holds. The difference between a man who crumbles and a man who stands firm lies entirely in one skill: emotional independence. When you are self-contained, nothing she does can unsettle you. When you are not, even the quietest glance can spark turmoil. Think about how often you've replayed a conversation in your mind, dissecting her tone, her word choice, the pauses in her responses. Did she like what you said? Was she judging you? That cycle of overanalysis is exactly what she can provoke without trying. She doesn't need to issue commands or drop hints. She simply becomes a mirror for your insecurities. The more you chase clarity from her, the less power you hold over your own emotions. And here's the catch. The ones who succeed in influence aren't doing it consciously. They are simply aware of the human tendency to overinvest. The antidote is awareness plus deliberate action. You must see the energy she projects and separate it from your own identity. When she hesitates, don't panic. When she seems distracted, don't overcompensate. When she teases or tests, respond from a grounded space, not an anxious one. That shift alone changes everything. A man who observes without reacting becomes unpredictable to her, magnetic not because of charm, but because he is anchored in reality, not in desire. That's the paradox. The less you chase, the more influence you regain. Now, let's talk about admiration versus control. A woman can admire a man endlessly and never control him. Admiration doesn't require emotional leverage. Control requires a gap, a space where uncertainty or desire can be triggered. She doesn't create that gap with words. She creates it with presence, subtle energy shifts, and silence. And here's the critical insight. Every time you respond with anxiety or neediness, you fill that gap for her. You voluntarily hand over the control. Your challenge is to learn how to sit in the tension without surrendering your self-worth. That tension is where growth lives, where strength builds, and where attraction transforms into respect. The men who fail often think they need strategies to win her over. But strategies can't fix internal instability. Stability fixes everything. The moment you stop seeking permission from her, the moment you stop measuring your value through her reactions, the dynamic flips. She may still test, she may still pull, she may still unsettle, but it no longer impacts your center. You are steady, you are sovereign, you are fully aware that no subtle glance, no quiet pause, no invisible signal can dictate how you feel about yourself. And this is why emotional independence isn't just attractive, it's untouchable. Influence becomes irrelevant, control becomes impossible, respect emerges naturally. And the truth? That kind of presence doesn't just change relationships with women, it changes every interaction in your life. Everything we've discussed leads to a single truth. Control over your mind is the ultimate game. Women can influence you without a single word because they are experts at reading the landscape of your emotions, the cracks in your confidence, the silent hesitations in your presence. And here's the sixth secret. When you become aware of these invisible currents, you are no longer a player in her game. You are the one who decides which energies you respond to, which triggers you entertain, and which moments pass by unclaimed. Mastery begins with awareness, and awareness becomes freedom. Think about all the times you've felt drawn into uncertainty, texting endlessly, overthinking her tone, replaying interactions in your head long after the moment has passed. That pull was never about her words. It was about your attachment to the outcome. When a man learns to step back, to observe without internal panic, the power shifts entirely. She may test, tease, or retreat slightly, but you remain steady. Your response is no longer dictated by neediness or desire. It is chosen deliberately from a place of unshakable self-possession. And that is irresistible, magnetic, and fundamentally untouchable. Here's the reality most men never understand. The more you chase approval, the more you surrender control. The more you anchor yourself in self-worth, the less she can silently move you. The tension she creates with a look, a pause, or an ambiguous gesture becomes a mirror of your own internal discipline. The stronger your awareness, the less she can dictate your emotional state. That is why men who understand female psychology, who grasp these 6 silent strategies, don't just attract, they command respect, not by force, but by mastery of themselves. You must practice this daily. Observe your reactions. Notice when you overextend to fill a silence, when you overthink a pause, when you try to predict her needs at the cost of your stability. Each time you reclaim that moment for yourself, you take back power. Emotional independence is not arrogance, it's sovereignty. And once you possess it, subtle influence no longer manipulates you. Instead, your presence reshapes the dynamic. You are no longer chasing approval. You are choosing connection, and that choice radiates strength. Now, I want you to test yourself. Here's a personal equation to think about and share in the comments. If this video revealed truths you've never heard before, hit the like button, subscribe for more insights on female psychology and relationships, and share this with a friend who needs to hear it today.